Today I'm bringing you an amazing White Forest Azamina deck profile. This deck is incredible and is one of the best decks out of Supreme Darkness, and the deck got so much better because of the new support that it received. If you guys are interested in playing a really cool synchro spam combo deck that does so much more than just that, you're gonna love this strategy. And if you want to see a combo guide as well, make sure to leave a like on the video, because at 150 likes, I'll bring you the ultimate combo guide for this deck. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the deck profile. So we have a 41 card main deck, a 15 card extra, and a 15 card side deck. And like I said before, this is one of the most incredible decks of the format. Is it going to be as good as something like Rizal Mitsurugi or Malice or Crystron? I don't know. I doubt it, to be honest. But I do think it has a lot of good things going for it, and it is an extremely fun deck to play as well. So if you want to have a good time with the strategy and you have the income to spend on an LZ or an Azamina package, then definitely I would recommend it, because I cannot express how much fun I've had with this strategy. So like I said, it's a 41 card deck, and starting off we have, of course, our 2 copies of LZ of the White Forest. This card is incredible. It has what I call the White Forest cost, which is to activate its main effect, you send a spell or trap from hand or field to grave for cost. So if you hear me saying the White Forest cost, I'm referring to that effect. So you have that White Forest cost while it's in your hand, and you special summon itself and search for a White Forest monster, which is really good. It's only able to be negated by something like Ash Blossom or Dominus Impulse, for example, when it comes to like hand traps. It's a great card, but it has a second effect. While it's in the graveyard during the opponent's turn, and a light spellcaster monster summoned to light tuner spellcaster rather is summoned to your field, you can just add it to your hand, which is really good. It lets you recycle your resources, and it's a starter for you as well. It's just amazing. We also have our 2 copies of a Stellar of the White Forest. Now, in my opinion, you have to play 4 of these level 2s. I don't think it makes any more sense to play more than that. If you want to play 3 LZ, 1 Stellar, that's fine. If you want to go 2-2, that's fine as well. If you want to go 1 LZ rather and 3 Stellar, that I kind of push back on a bit. I think you definitely want to have at least 2 LZ because it's the better card, but both these cards have their uses. A Stellar, while it's on the field, has the White Forest cost to be able to special summon a tuner spellcaster light monster from the deck, which is great at getting your play started, but also if it's in the graveyard and a spell or trap sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, that doesn't have to be a White Forest card, it could be any card, then you can just summon it back to your field, which is really nice. Great card here. These cards are great for extenders, and they're both starters for the strategy. We then have the new card. We have the 2 copies of Azamina LZ, or LZ Azamina of the White Forest. The second copy I have here, I'm waiting on it. I should be having it on Sunday. I'm really excited to get it because it's a great card. You can play the deck at 1. You can play it with this at 1, and it's a fantastic card even at 1, and it raises the deck ceiling so high. But in my opinion, you want to have it at 2 copies because you want to see it a bit more often than that. If you manage to just open it in your hand, it lets you play through hand traps really effectively, which is very nice. It has 3 amazing effects. First effect is you can just reveal it and then special summon a White Forest or White Forest or Azamina card rather, a White Forest or Azamina monster from your hand. So it's able to allow you to just special summon itself out, special summon out like a Sylvie, or anything else you want to be able to get the ball rolling. While it's on field as an ignition effect, you can just fusion summon, which is amazing, and allows you to be able to just get access to your Azamina cards that much easier. On top of that, if it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material for the special summon of a synchro monster, or the synchro summon rather, of a synchro monster, then you can search your deck for any Sinful Spoils spell or trap, or just card, Sinful Spoils card I believe it is. Yeah, Sinful Spoils card. So it allows you to get access to your Wanted engine pretty easily as well. It's an amazing card. You definitely want to have at least 1 of these. Ideally at least 2. I think 3 is kind of pushing it. You can get away with it, but I think the deck is already tight enough. You only need to have 2. And in my opinion, you want to play 10 White Forest monsters. Moving on though to our level 4s, we have the 3 copies of Sylvie and the 1 Rusia. Now, these have interesting effects. They are your level 4 tuners. You have to play them. Rusia has the effect where while it's in the hand and you control a White Forest monster, you can just reveal it and special summon it. Or it doesn't reveal, but you activate it, declare the effect, your opponent has a chance to respond, and then you special summon it to your side of the field. While it's on the field, you can pay the White Forest cost and then draw a card, which is great. And this last effect, it shares with the Sylvie, where while it's in the graveyard, either of these is in the graveyard, you can target a White Forest synchro monster on field or grave, shuffle it back into the deck, and then special summon this monster with its effects negated, which is really nice to recover your resources and trigger your LZ effect to be able to add itself to hand. Sylvie on summon is a searcher for a White Forest spell or trap, which is great as well. And it's one card, it's a one card combo in the deck, which is why you play 3 copies of it. And it's the best level 4 tuner the deck has to offer as well. Moving on though, that's it for our White Forest monsters. That's 10 monsters. We have our White Forest spell and traps. We have the 2 Tales of the White Forest, the 1 Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, and the 1 Woes of the White Forest. Now let's take a look at these cards and explain what they do altogether. Tales is a bad card. It just is. You really want to make sure that if you're rocking with Tales, you have enough ways to get spellcasters or illusions on the field, because without them on the field, you can't activate Tales, which is ridiculous. That being said though, if you do manage to activate it, it is essentially just reinforcement of the army for the archetype. On top of that, it's a White Forest spell or trap. Every single White Forest spell or trap has this effect, where if they're sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can just reset them back to your field, which is amazing. So it comes up a lot. And you want to play 2 because you have so many ways to get illusions or spellcasters on the field. I wouldn't play 3, I think that's a bit much, but 1 is minimum, 2 is what I'd recommend. Sinful Spoils of the White Forest is a broken card, and it's also a brand new card out of Supreme Darkness. It is so good because of a few reasons, but the most notable one is that it's a Sinful Spoils card and it's a White Forest card. So it has that White Forest effect, but it also can be set off of Diabellstar and searched with Azamina LZ. It's a quick play spell, which is great because it lets you dodge a lot of interruption, because if you control a illusion, fiend, or spellcaster monster, that's the tri-type for this archetype, you can then either do one of 2 things. Number 1, you can just special one of the tri-type from your hand, or number 2, you can fusion summon, which is going to be amazing to be able to get into really powerful and broken extra deck plays as well, and interrupt your opponent too. It's a great card for this archetype, and it helps you dodge Nibiru and play through that as well really effectively. Finally, we have Woes of the White Forest. This is a cuttable card. You don't really need to have it in the deck, but it's a great card because it has that White Forest effect, but it lets you special summon from the deck a White Forest monster, then synchro summon if you want to into a White Forest monster. So it's really good. The only thing is, it doesn't really do anything when you're going second, and because of that, it's dropped from a lot of lists. I personally side it out a lot, but it's a great choice nonetheless because it really adds to the layers of disruption the deck has to offer, and I think it offers disruption and follow-up, which is very much appreciated. We then have our Sinful Spoils card. You guys know what these do. The Wanted package, 3 Wanted with the 1 Diabellstar. We're playing 1 Deception and 1 Hallowed Azamina. Now, interesting ratios here. We're not playing 3 Diabellstar because you don't really want to see it. It's the worst card in the deck. You just want to be able to search for it off of something like your Wanted, for example. But it is a solid card nonetheless because it gets you access to your Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. Basically, Wanted searches for Diabellstar, Diabellstar searches for Deception, and then Deception searches for Hallowed, which gets you access to Interruption in the form of Negation with Ilya Sylvia. That's why you play it. It also helps you get your spell and traps into the graveyard and trigger their effects. Diabellstar pairs amazingly with our next little engine as well. Next engine, I should probably mention as well, Hallowed Azamina can shuffle back an Azamina card from your graveyard or field and then add itself to hand. You don't only have to use your fusion monsters because LZ Azamina is an Azamina card, meaning you can use that, shuffle it back into the deck to add this back to hand, and then fusion summon again with it, which is really, really nice. Moving on though, our next little engine is going to be none other than the toy engine. I'm playing the toy box engine, but I'm playing a very limited version of it. Just 5 cards, and I think these 5 cards really raise the ceiling of the deck a lot while also boosting its consistency because these are extra ways to get spell and trap cards. Because if you open up with a single copy of Toy Box, it represents 3 spell cards, which is amazing because all of your cards are sending cards to grave for cost. So while it does represent those 3 spell cards, it's that plus additional advantage as well. So Toy Box, it lets you do one of 2 things. It either lets you destroy spell and trap you control, or it lets you set from your field, graveyard, or deck up to 2 toy monsters that can be placed face down as spell and traps. So Toy Tank and Toy Soldier. And both these share the effect that if they're sent from their spell and trap zone to the graveyard, you can special summon them back, which is really nice. But on top of that, they have other effects. Toy Soldier, when summoned, can search for Toy Box, or if you already have Toy Box, it can add any level 4 light monster from deck to hand. That's right, any level 4 light monster. Toy Tank, on the other hand, has an ignition effect where you contribute it for cost and special summon from your graveyard a level 6 or lower monster, or from your hand if you control Toy Box. So it's a very strong card as well. Lets you get access to multiple ways to extend in addition to what you already have. So it's a great card. Moving on though, we have our non-engine. We have 3 copies of Triple Tactic Thrust. You know what Thrust does? It's even better in this deck because you can set your White Forest spell traps and then use them for cost to pay your White Forest cost, and then you can reset them back again where they can be activated once more. 2 copies of Talents is amazing because there's a lot of cards that really hurt this deck, and if you can Talents to look at your opponent's hand, you can then use your interruptions a lot more effectively because you do have so many layered interruptions as part of your end board. So Talents is even better in this deck. In my opinion, this suite is so good and you really have to play it in this lineup. We also have the one copy of Call by the Grave to round out our defensive cards, I'll call them really. Moving on though, we have a little bit more engine, they're like flex spots, I would call it, but we have our Azarune and we have our Blackout Lass. Azarune is part of our end board. You summon it off, or you set it rather from the deck off of the Silhouette Rabbit. Great card because it lets you get access to another negation of a summon, which is great, and it also helps you in battle as well and gets you a monster on field for other plays. And Blackout Lass is amazing in this deck. It's so strong because it's a great thrust target when you're going first, but also if you're going second, you can use LZ of the Azamina, send this to grave for cost, and if your opponent has like a Detonator on field or a Fiendsmith Desiree, you can go chain 1 LZ, send this for cost. If they don't respond, you can then go, okay, chain 2 Blackout Lass, banish it, and then call Detonator or the Fiendsmith Desiree, and then they can no longer activate the effects of that card on the field, which are really, really nice. So I like this card a lot. I would probably bump it up if I had more copies, but for the time being, we're already at like a tight list at 41, so it's not the end of the world to keep it at 1. We then have our hand traps, 3 Infinite Impermanence, as well as 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Imperm is the best hand trap in this deck because it is a trap card, so you can send it to grave for cost. And Ash Blossom helps you against cards like the Mulcharmies, which are really good against this strategy. And of course, it's just good in the format all around. And we have 2 copies of Valor. 2 Valor here for 2 reasons. Number 1, I didn't want to play 3 because you don't really need to, and you want to make sure you have a good amount of spell traps compared to the cards in your deck. But Valor is searchable off of Rosella of the White Forest, which is great. But on top of that, it's a spellcaster, so you can just normal summon it, and then you can use the effect of Tails to search. At least it gets you your place going, which is really nice. So that's why I want to include the Valor here in this strategy. They do get sided out quite a bit because they're not amazing in this format, but having access to a searchable negation tool is really good in this strategy, which is why I want to include it. Moving on though, we have our extra deck, and the extra deck is filled with all the different types of summoning mechanics. We have our Synchros, starting with Diabell, Queen of the White Forest. Incredible card. Two main effects. The first one is going to be if it's synchro summoned using a tuner synchro monster, you can add any spell or trap from grave to hand. Anyone you want. Amazing, you can recycle tons of resources, and you make this pretty much every turn. Its second effect is if your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send to grave a spell or trap from hand or field, and then you can special summon a tuner synchro from your extra deck, which is really good because it allows you to interrupt your opponent even further and allows you to play through cards like Nibiru even better. We, of course, have our main target off of that effect, which is going to be our Silvera of the White Forest. This card on summon is a Book of Eclipse, and it's not once per turn. So if you can summon it off of Diabell, put it back in the extra deck, and then summon it off of Woes, then you can Book of Eclipse twice, which is really nice. It also gives your monsters double piercing damage, which is really cool. We have Rosella of the Sinful Spoils. This you make every turn as well because it's your searcher for any White Forest card or light spellcaster monster, like for example your Effect Valor. And it also protects your synchros from being destroyed by card effects, and it gives them attack as well. And then our last synchro monster is Chaos Angel. That's it, that's all we play for synchros. Chaos Angel is kind of self-explanatory. It's super easy to make in this deck. You have a bunch of level 6s and level 4s, or level 8 and 2s. It's very easy to make, and you can make it with lights and darks as well, which is really cool. We don't play Zapper Shrimp, you don't have to anymore. It's kind of tight, the extra deck. We don't play Chenging or Coral Dragon or Triage Master. There's a lot of options, but I think that these are the 4 you have to be playing. The other ones, they're like flex spots at best. Moving on though to our fusion monsters, we have starting off with our Searcher being Mu Resalago. Great card, searches you for your Sinful Spoils cards. So it lets you get access to Wanted, for example, or even your Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, which is really nice. Just a great card. And it also reduces, I believe it is. Yeah, reduces your opponent's attack and defense by 500 for each Azamina monster you control. We have our Negate being the Ilias Sylvia. This negates any card effect, and it's an Omni, which is amazing, and attributes itself for cost. It's just a really strong card. And then we have a surprising inclusion, being Azamina, Moa, Regina. We play 3 Azamina monsters in this list. This one is worse than the other 2 because you need to use 2 Sinful Spoils cards to summon it off of Hallowed Azamina, and you can't actually summon it by its like a regular polymerization effect because you don't play any level 6 or higher Fiend monsters. It just doesn't exist. But this card is great because it allows you to play around Nibiru. If you do get nibbed, you can set up a way to be able to summon this out, and then its effect can let you summon out an illusion monster from graveyard. Notably, you would summon out your Diabell, and then if a Sinful Spoils spell or trap, or Sinful Spoils card rather, is activated, you can then destroy the 2 cards on the field. It does target, but it's really good because it's interruption as well on a really big body too. It's just a great card. We then play the 1 copy of Guardian Chimera. This card is what you're summoning most of the time off of Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. It's so easy to get to. It's a pop 2, draw 1, or a draw 2, pop 1. It's amazing in this deck, and you really want to take advantage of this card. It is a really good piece of interruption. And our final fusion monster is also new from Supreme Darkness. It's going to be Magistus Chorozo. This card I thought was going to be good in this deck, but from testing, it's insane. It's so strong. It takes your Diabell Star, which has a really awkward star line, and your copy of your Silhouette Rabbit, which we're going to see later on, and turns it into a level 4 that can be used for Xyz plays, but also into a level 4 tuner that can be used to make your copy of your Ricella with a copy of your LZ or Stellar, whatever the case might be. It's just the perfect card for the strategy. You definitely want to see it, and because of this card, Wanted essentially is a 1.5 card combo, which is amazing. Moving on, we have our Xyz monsters, starting off with Abyss Dweller, which is, in my opinion, mandatory for this format because decks like Crystron and decks like Mitsurugi Rizal really struggle against Abyss Dweller, and you can end on it so consistently thanks to Magistus Chorozo. We also have another rank 4 being Baguska. I like Baguska a lot. This is like the true flex spot of the deck for what I'm currently playing. I would like it a lot because it allows me to set up this with all my interruption in the back row, and because I'm playing something like a Woes or a Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, I can get rid of it pretty easily after my opponents kind of try to exhaust it or use an imperm on it, and I can then create a more powerful end board after that, which is really nice. Our final Xyz is the Typhon. You need this for this format because Rizal is insane. You summon this down when they've gone through a detonator line, you then bounce the detonator, and then you just attack over other things, and you're kind of good to go. Just a really great option here. Moving on, we have our links. We have the 1 Silhouette Rabbit and the 1 SP Little Knight as really good end board pieces. This gets you access to Azaroon. This is just the best card in the game. And we also have the 1 Cross Sheep, which is amazing in this deck. You use Cross Sheep so much, and there's a lot of times where you just keep it on your side of the field and pass turn to your opponent because it gets you access to extra bodies on the field for your Sinful Spoils of the White Forest or for your Woes of the White Forest. It's super easy to trigger multiple times, and you're always pointing it down to a fusion monster, which is great. There's so many combos that it goes through. Speaking of combos, if you guys want to see that combo video, make sure to let me know by leaving a like on the video. At 150 likes, I will bring you that combo guide. Our side deck is going to be 3 copies of Nibiru. We have 1, 2, 3 Bystials, 3 different Bystials. And by the way, I should mention this. Tailor your side deck to your local scene and to your meta that's in your area. For me, this is what makes a lot of sense, so I want to include it. But Nib is great against so many decks when paired with other hand traps, and the Bystials are amazing against the Fiendsmith cards, which are running around everywhere. I have 3 Droll and Lockbird, which is great for a few different decks, notably Crystron, Mitsurugi Rizal. Rizal in general is not that bad. Like they don't appreciate Droll, they can play through, but they don't love it. And it's also really good against rogue decks and this deck as well. We have 3 Lancia, which is without a doubt the best side deck card in this deck. I'm not even kidding. It's really good because not only is it amazing against Malice, which is one of your harder matchups, but it's great because this card isn't a monster. This is a spell card. You can just set it face down, and then you can use the effect of your Azamina or your LZ or your Stellar, your White Forest cards in general, send it to the graveyard as a spell, and then trigger their effects. That works. That's the beauty of it being an artifact card. So it's a great card in this strategy. We also have the 1 Sanctum to be able to set this off of the thrust, to be able to get access to our Lancia. We have the 1 Karma Cannon and the 1 Dimensional Barrier. A little bit iffy on D-Barrier, but it's really good against pure Rizal decks, which my meta just so happens to have. And then Karma Cannon is great against so many other strategies as well, where D-Barrier may not be as strong. Now that's going to be it for our main side and extra deck. I'm really happy with the ratios in this deck. I think that they work out really well. But if you have any questions about the ratios or what my thought process is on any of those, you're more than welcome to leave a comment below. I'll be happy to answer them and just see if I can maybe ease your mind on them and get you a good answer that you're happy with, because I do think this deck is really strong and has a lot of utility in this format, but you have to play it well. That being said, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys want to see more White Forest gameplay or combos, or if you guys want to see a spreadsheet, something like that, let me know as well. But I do actually have one other thing I want to talk about, and that's going to be, I want to go over a few different cards that are not included in this list and explain why I decided not to play them. So first things first, I want to say that I considered not playing the toy engine here, even without playing the Fiendsmith cards, because of how good Detonator is in the format. But it makes setting up rank 4 monsters so much easier, and it's technically consistency. But if you decide playing against the toy engine and you want to play other cards that aren't the Fiendsmith engine, I'd recommend Spell and Trap board breakers are really good replacements. For example, something like Forbidden Droplet. That being said, other cards I considered were of course going to be the Fiendsmith engine, which is really good, but it's very extra deck heavy and very expensive. And if you play it, you can't fill it with all the cards you want for each engine. For example, you can't play the DDD Wave Hiking Caesar in the deck. It just is too extra deck reliant and you don't have space for all your White Forest cards. But it is likely going to be a better version of the list I showed you today. The Mulcharmies, if you have them, find space for them. I do not own a single Mulcharmy. I own one Fuwalos that I'm trying to sell forever, and it's really good in the side deck. I would recommend playing the Fuwalos and the Meowls because they're really good against Malice, which is your hardest matchup. Scourge of the White Forest is a really good card, but I'm not playing it either. It's solid because it's a White Forest spell, so it has the recovering ability, but it's only really good against Evenly Matched, which you have Lancia to protect against as well. And honestly, every other blowout card that it stops, you have ways to just play through anyway, so I'm not too concerned with that card. Azamina Aphes is a new card from Supreme Darkness, and if you really want another White Forest trap in the list, you can play it, but I recommend playing Woes instead because in my opinion it's just better. It acts as Book of Eclipse if you can summon out a copy of Silvera, but it also acts as follow-up at the absolute worst. Aphes technically has the higher ceiling, but it's a much lower floor, and I recommend Woes over it by a lot. Forbidden Droplet is a really strong card in the toy version of the deck because you can set a toy card and then send it to the graveyard to activate the effect, and then get their effects to search as well, which is really nice. But in my opinion, the deck has a hard time against Shifter, so why would I want another card that just auto loses to Shifter? As for the extra deck, we have Saint Azamina, which is another new card from Supreme Darkness, and it works really well. But honestly, it only comes up in lines where you're worried about Nibiru in my opinion, and the deck can still play through Nib even without it. If you wanted to play it in my list, I'd recommend taking out the copy of Baguska for it. Zapper Shrimp is a great card to make Chaos Angel during the opponent's turn, but that's pretty much it. And honestly, the Silvera Book of Eclipse play is usually going to be better and comes up more. Coral Dragon is a card that I actually kind of miss. The extra deck is just way too tight. It triggers your White Forest spell and trap cards, and it also draws you cards as well. It's very good, and if you want to play it in your list, that's totally fine. Visas Amritara along with the Manadium Countertrap are really strong, but they're an extra brick into the deck. And while it's a good brick, I don't think it's actually necessary anymore. IP Masquerena is not needed at all because your deck already has so much layered interruption, you don't need to add IP to it once again. The deck is just good enough as is without it. And lastly is the new Link 4, Abao Aku, the Lightless Shadow. This card is also really good in this deck. It's made up entirely of light and dark monsters, and it definitely increases the ceiling of the end board. The problem is that you have to get a Fiend monster for its summon, and your only consistent option to do that is like a Nightmare Phoenix. It's just too much space in the extra deck for you to reliably use. So I hope you found this video informative or helpful when it comes to your decision on playing White Forest. I think the deck is such a great time, an amazingly fun deck, and can compete quite well in the format. And honestly, it's one of the most fun times I've had playing a deck in quite a while. It's just that much of a good time. If you guys are excited for a potential combo video, then make sure to leave a like on the video. Remember, at 150, I will bring you that combo guide. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.